first dose of Balance of Nature.
Let's do it.
Drum roll, please.
Here we go.
Justin Finke. Yeah. Shot.
He's got some big feels, though.
I love Justin. He's so
Let's
like,
go.
here he goes. If you're watching at the Matrix Home Solutions studio camera, oh yeah, he's doing it.
Done.
You did it that
All
fast? All right.
All
See, I
six.
do an actual shot of Balance of Nature. I crack open the capsules and put it in warm water, and that's how I take my Balance
Well,
of
this was
Nature.
my first one, so I will let you know.
Yeah. No, try it for a few weeks.
I will.
I'll
will.
give you some bottles.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
I will.
I was supposed to save it for Paul Vallis.
Sorry, Paul.
Sorry, Paul. But John filled in before you. Sorry, now he's not going to get the Balance of Nature.
I mean,
All
he's an
right.
understanding guy.
Yeah, he'll understand. Yesterday, President Biden with his sales pitch to America, because now, he wants to make room for $2 trillion in this infrastructure plan, which is more than just roads and bridges, folks, in this thing. And he said that he's not punishing anyone if, the Republicans don't go along.
I'm not trying to punish anybody. But damn it. Maybe it's because I come from a middle-class neighborhood. I'm sick and tired of ordinary people being fleeced.
We're being fleeced.
God.
Yes.
Why do they get soft?
I don't know.
I'm not trying to. Harry Reid. It's the Harry Reid effect. Yeah.
It was, these past few days when he's been speaking it's just painful to watch him.
Yeah, it is.
And I know Dan hates when I focus on the fact that, he's got early stages of dementia.
I agree.
But that first press conference he had was disgusting. How they could have let him become president, how the Democrats chose him.
Anyway.
And because then all of a sudden then he got mad and then he's angry.
Yeah.
And the unions built this town.
Yeah.
And then he went back to,
Yeah.
it was psychotic.
It was.
Anywho. All right, well, with more on this and what's really, in the infrastructure phase of this, what's in it, let's welcome back to the program, Jimmy P. Jim Pethokoukis. How are you, Jim?
Good. How you doing?
He's a DeWitt Wallace Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, where he runs the AE Ideas blog. And he has a column out, Does America Really Have an Infrastructure Crisis? So let's begin there, James. Do we have a crisis?
I don't think we do. And I'm very skeptical of people throwing around the word crisis, because they often do that. So you sort of stop thinking and just start, agreeing to, whatever particular thing they want to spend money on. If you look at how U.S. infrastructure compares to other countries, it's really fairly comparable. I know anyone who does a lot of traveling will, anyone who's traveled overseas, sometimes we'll see great airports. But if you look overall at U.S. infrastructure, whether it is roads and bridges or airports, there's not a lot of difference. So if the U.S. has an infrastructure crisis, that means pretty much the whole world does.
And part of this is there's social reforms in this, including unionizing home health care providers. Can you talk about that? Oh, yeah. That's part of it. Because remember, Governor Quinn tried to do that here?
That's right.
That if you're at home taking care of your mom, or that you should become a union member.
Yeah.
So it's a big bill. It's a big bill, and there's a lot of things. As shorthand, we call it infrastructure bill, and I realize that some sort of cutesy, there's some cutesy names, trying to say everything is infrastructure. Obviously, infrastructure mostly means things like, certainly roads and bridges, airports. I think clean water. I would count that as infrastructure. And there's other things in this bill. There's increased science research. Not everything, because it's not infrastructure doesn't mean it's not good. There's more science research in this bill. I think that's probably a pretty good idea. So then there's increasing money for Medicaid home services. Would I count that as infrastructure? No. It may be worthy doing. But I certainly wouldn't call that infrastructure. And to suddenly try to redefine things is you're really sort of misusing the language there.
So why is the president trying to use this infrastructure language as basically saying we're competing against China in order so that we have to pass this $2 trillion bill because we're competing against China? Really? What are your thoughts about him using China as a scapegoat with this?
Well, listen. If I'm an American politician today, and I'm trying to get something done, I would point to China. Whatever it is. Well, do we need to have better infrastructure? China. Do we need to have a lower corporate rate? Well, that's obviously because of China. Do we need to spend more on science research? That's from China. Should we spend more on education? Yeah, China. Get used to that. When you have a big geopolitical rival with a fast-growing economy, you are going to point to that country as the reason you need to do just about anything. Why should there be the designated hitter in the National League? I think China. That's
Right.
that's my issue.
Well,
So they're going to sell it like that, and they're going to try to shove all the stuff together in one bill because they want to use this sort of reconciliation, this special legislative process to get it passed. So that to me that's politics. So I do agree that playing around with the language just makes people super skeptical and maybe unwilling to do the actual things we need to do to fix infrastructure.
yeah, and here is President Biden talking about China.
Do you think China is waiting around to invest in this digital infrastructure or in research and development? I promise you, they are not waiting. But they're counting on American democracy to be too slow, too limited, and too divided to keep pace.
James, why are we comparing ourselves to a country that uses slave labor?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I think we're comparing ourselves to China because they're big. They have an economy by some measures almost as big as the United States, and they're spending a lot of money investing in technologies which seem to be very cutting-edge technologies, and we're worried that they will become the technological leader. China is a country of contrast, right? So you have places like Shanghai, which seem like that could be Manhattan, and you have very, very poor places. There's a huge diversity. So, but what we are worried is that they are spending a lot of money on things like AI, robotics, advanced nuclear power, and worried that in these areas, even though overall China's a poor country, they're a poor country with a fairly advanced technology sector, and they will take the lead in these technologies, which not only means that their companies may end up being the world leaders in those areas, but we're also worried about obviously the national security implications.
Yeah.
I do not want to live in a world where a non-democracy is the world's technological leader.
I agree.
Now, President Biden said yesterday that he's willing to negotiate the 28% corporate tax rate. That's part of this. And Joe Manchin suggested 25%. What do you think is a good rate?
Like one thing a lot of economists agree on is that you should tax things you don't want. Like if you don't like lots of carbon emissions, you should tax that. You want companies to invest a lot, right? So the corporate tax is kind of inherently a bad tax. So I would like it as low as possible. If the point of the Biden agenda overall is the need to invest more in America, that includes certainly the public sector, but also the private sector. And we had this big corporate tax cut, as you all remember, under President Trump, which I think was a good idea. He should have paid for it, but the idea of lowering that rate dramatically was a good idea. Unfortunately, we launched this trade war at the same time, which really undercut the effectiveness of that corporate tax rate. So I would sort of leave the corporate tax rate where it is as minimum. And if you're trying to pay for this plan, and as well as stabilize U.S. finances for the long term, then you need to have a different kind of tax. So whether that's a consumption tax, whether that's a carbon tax, but we need to think hard about how we want to tax, America. Because listen, it's not going to work trying to tax companies and the very, very richest. There just isn't enough money there.
Yeah, but James, listen, I've been in politics for 30 some odd years. One thing I know, anytime any and every time I hear the word infrastructure, you know what it tells me?
What?
We have to pay back the friends to help us get elected. That's basically what the infrastructure bill is about. That's when Obama did his infrastructure bill, he basically paid back the people to help him get in office. Now Biden is doing the same thing. So, I mean, politics. You're right. This is all politics when it comes to infrastructure bill. Because guess what? We still have trillions of dollars left of all of the stimulus money that is yet to be spent. So you want to go on top of the $4 trillion that we spent then. Now you want to do $2 trillion. What's next? Tell us. Just lay out the entire Green New Deal. Basically, is what you're telling. Would I be wrong to assume that?
Listen, one thing, sort of the hot new theory is that debt and deficits don't really matter. And if they mattered, boy, it would be so far off we don't have to worry about it right now. Once you sort of give yourself that sort of power that, okay, we think we really don't need to pay for things, and if we pay for things, we're gonna pay for them by really making it more of a political agenda because we don't like companies and we don't like rich people, so we're going to tax them. But once you think that we really don't have to pay for things, then everything sort of is on the table. You can have stimulus checks. You can pay for any infrastructure you want. You can spend as much as you want on investment. You can spend it as much as you want on Medicaid. But the second you begin thinking we need to pay for things, then it forces you to make hard choices. And to govern is to make difficult choices.
It's true.
Do we need more infrastructure in this country? I think we probably do. But once you begin to think that, well, you don't have to really pay for it, then you stop thinking about what are the really valuable projects and which are the ones that are not.
You know, I fear that a loaf of bread is going to be $30 one day. I mean, think about it. Since Biden's taken office, and it's not that long ago, gas in Arlington Heights has gone up 70 cents a gallon.
Wow.
And how high do you think the gas prices are going to go, James?
I'm not doing gasoline forecasting,
I know.
but I think there's a concern that you're spending a lot of money. So one, deficits don't matter, and two, we'll never have high inflation again. Yeah. Listen, we're pumping a lot of money into the economy. Interest rates are super low. It's not crazy to worry about higher inflation. People think like, well, the 70s are over, no more inflation. Well, that leads me to the second people think that we can never have higher inflation again. That's when I begin to worry. We're going to have higher inflation again, just to be a contrarian.
All right, James, before we let you go, what do you think of these celebrities filling in on Jeopardy? Have you been
I'm
watching?
a LeVar Burton guy. I think LeVar Burton should be the new host. He's outstanding.
Okay.
So that's what I think. So if
Good
you want
choice.
a celebrity, he'd be a great celebrity.
Awesome. Hey, they didn't ask you to fill in, huh?
Listen, I'd be there.
I know.
I'd be in Hollywood right now if they did.
I know. All right, James, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
he's only
All
Jeopardy winner I've ever met in my life. Thank you so much for joining us. James Pethokoukis, his new column is Does America Really Have an Infrastructure Crisis? And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
This is attorney Stephen Leahy. This isn't the first crisis we faced together. Back in '08, business professionals in trouble sought help from bankruptcy attorneys, loan modification attorneys, foreclosure defense attorneys, and IRS attorneys trying to gain full financial recovery. They should have just called me. Let me tell you about Chuck. His small business crashed in the '08 crisis. He faced 2 foreclosures, overbearing creditors, and the dreaded IRS. Chuck would not even get out of bed in the morning.